welcome to another Rootless Conversation. Today I'm in the city of New York to speak to Will Lawrence, a celebrity chef, world-renowned chef, well, at least in the city of New York, and recently featured on Chopped episode with none other than Martha Stewart. Will, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit with us here today in New York City and talk to us about your roots and your story. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm super excited, but to just break off the ice, I'm just going to go right into it. I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all our guests, and I started off with, when I say rootless, does that signify something with along your journey in life?
Rootless. When I hear rootless, I think obviously first thing is someone without roots, someone without maybe that established family they can go back to for help, or a profession that's been laid out for you, something that you have to stand on your own. You have to dig your feet and find your own way, because there might not be that many resources to revert back to.
That's always fascinating because everybody answers this so differently. So thanks for sharing that
You're
with
welcome.
us. Let's start right there. Let's start with roots. Will, talk to us a little bit about your roots and your beginnings.
So now I'm 30 years old. I born and raised, grew up in the Bronx, New York, single mother with my sister Michelle. My mother and father, they split around the time I was born. So young, dad in and out. Later on in life, same thing, but we developed our own special relationship, and me and my father are great. He's a great man. But it was very common where I was from. Most of my friends didn't have their dads in their lives, so a lot of us were hanging out, playing. Mom had to work. Later on, my mom got disabled, so she was home more. But that set its own thing of challenges. Mom wasn't working. We were dependent on Social Security, things like that to get by. But I never once needed anything. My life was great. Looking back on it, I realized my mom didn't have too much to work with, but we had everything we needed. And it was a great childhood, full of family, full of fun, laughs. And I remember, around middle school, that rush to okay, I want to start working. My friends got sneakers. I'm over here buying fake sneakers from the African store on the corner, getting fake Air Force Ones. I'm like, I want to get, real stuff. So first job was a busboy. I was 14, working, under the books. And, just busboy, me and my cousin. And then later on, I winded up staying in restaurants. And it turned up, before I knew it, I was 17, 18 years old. And I was running the front of the house of this popular Italian restaurant in my neighborhood.
Wow.
And did that for a couple more years, went in and out of catering. And I thought maybe I might want to open up a restaurant one day. But I don't know anything about the back of the house. I know how to cook. On my breaks, I would always go in the back and help out the kitchen guys. I'm mixed. I'm Italian, Puerto Rican, so I would be in an Italian restaurant, in the front of the house with all the Italian kids hanging out. But then I would go to the back of the kitchen and kind of, as they say, bust the guy's balls in the kitchen.
Yes.
and speak Spanish with them, and they would teach me. And then I realized, maybe I like this a little more than what I'm doing outside.
Wow.
And I took a tour of a culinary school, and it clicked.
And there's so many things that you've shared with us. First of all, you shared with us how you were raised and your story, and how you realized that, okay, yes, my father's in and out of the picture, but it's common where I'm from, right? And you normalized with that, and it's important that you shared that, because somebody listening, it might feel bad, but it's a story of a lot of people. You're not the only one.
Absolutely. And it gives you, it gives you a sense of character. Everybody wants to be the hero in their story and overcome challenges. So when it comes, you just take it like, this is another thing I got to overcome.
Absolutely. And another thing you said is that want and desire to want to buy something, that they want to be like everybody else, that really drove you to, I need to get a job because I want to own the shoes that my friends have, or I'm seeing people have. So that's great that you realized at such a young age, and that landed you in that busboy position.
Absolutely.
Fun fact, I was a bus girl too.
I feel like it's a common story for so many people. It's such an accepting industry. Anyone from all walks of life can kind of say, I'm going to get a job at a restaurant today. You're going to find one that needs the help.
And then you said the story where it all clicked for you when you took that tour.
Absolutely, because I was working in Italian American restaurants. Very just neighborhood joints, as they call them. And when I took that tour of the culinary school with the all white walls, the beautiful polished stainless steel, all the chefs in their pressed, white linens, and I was just overwhelmed. I've never seen that before. I never went to like a Michelin star restaurant or went into anything fancy before. You know, the fanciest place was like the best Italian place in my neighborhood was the fanciest place. So when I saw that, I was just overwhelmed. I was like, wow, this is a serious profession. I looked at those chefs as if I was looking at a CEO or a lawyer or a doctor, because they were being treated with that much respect. I was seeing the way people were operating around them, and they controlled the entire kitchen, and it really blew me away, and it made me want to become a chef.
And how important is that, would you say, to a parent listening or a teacher listening, that young exposure? Because that gave you a vision. You saw something, right? How important is that sometimes, we might not have the best surroundings, but show somebody something and they'll go and get it.
Oh, it's imperative, because it's such a gift that I look back on now, that I found out what I wanted to do at a young age, and it set me, the trajectory is limitless because it's just compounded, every year. I started early, so it's just been growing exponentially. And in culinary school, I found so many people there, they were in their late 20s, mid 30s, some in their mid 40s, changing careers because they always wanted to be a chef,
Wow.
but they never did it. They worked 15 years at their company and didn't want to. So I'm really grateful that I was exposed young, and it kind of clicked.
So, how old were you when you took that leap of faith in culinary? Did you go right into it, or?
No, I tried to appease, the normal outlook, the normal thing that every parent wants, and to go to college. I went to college at Long Island University in obviously Long Island. I did a year there, and it was absolutely horrible. I think I got like 2 credits for an entire year there.
What were you trying to
I was
obtain?
trying to work. I was trying to have fun. I just didn't like that structured life, and it wasn't for me. I was really trying to appease my mother, make sure that she got what she wanted out of everything, and she can be proud. But eventually, I just started giving up, and I was already itching to get back to the Bronx, to New York, to start working again. And when I finished that year, that's when I took the tour of culinary school, and I was about 20 years old.
Okay.
And I was in that culinary school for about 2 years. And then halfway through culinary school, I got a job, my first cook job.
Wow. I'm going to ask a couple of questions about culinary school, because it's something that everybody thinks they have an idea what it's like. But what is it like? What's those first days in culinary school like?
Yeah, a lot of people ask if culinary school is necessary
Exactly.
and things of that nature. It's not completely necessary. If you start working in restaurants at a young age, try your best to move up in the restaurants. But it does help with teaching you the why. And it all depends how you learn. I'm a learner that I need to know why I'm doing something for me to keep on doing it that way. So in culinary school, they explain everything. They explain the different techniques, where these techniques came from, how French techniques are usually used in a lot of these great restaurants. But it's not necessarily French cuisine. You can take any cuisine, but you apply these techniques that the French winded up putting down in a book. So how to hold a knife, how to make a certain cut, what flavors pair with what, how to cook a piece of fish beautifully, the temperatures that are correct for each protein. So those are the why, and that's what culinary school does, and it kind of gives you a structure and a discipline and a sense of like philosophies that you can look back on. So I advise it for whoever is able to do it. Not necessary, but it will make your experience better, and you'll probably catapult more after that.
And were there all good days in culinary school? Much better than
At the end of the day, it was school, and my track record with school is not the best, but it was great. I'm in the middle of New York City, 20 years old, cooking. After school, we want to go to the best restaurant as students. We want to go to the best bar as students.
Yeah.
And so it was an amazing experience. I did amazing on all of my practical tests. Written tests, not so much, but I graduated, and like I said, I started working immediately, as soon as I could.
Wow. And did you go and get the job? What was that like, or did the job find you?
So it was a restaurant called Joanne's in the Upper West Side, and this popular chef, Art Smith, who I loved at the time, still do, amazing chef. He was opening it with Lady Gaga's parents. Mm-hmm. And so they opened up this restaurant. In my mind, I figured, hey, if there's any night he's going to be there, it's going to be opening night. So I go there, and the whole ruse is just so I can meet the chef. So I finally meet him, get in his ear, tell him that I'm in culinary school, that I really want to start working. he set me up immediately with an interview for a couple days later. Came back to the restaurant, passed the interview, and like I said, so now I'm working while I'm in culinary school, and it turned out to be an amazing experience. They wanted me to stay there full time, so Lady Gaga's mother drafted a letter to the president of the school asking if I can graduate early, so I could start working more. But I stood in culinary school.
You finished.
I finished.
And you stayed with that restaurant?
I stayed with that restaurant pretty much till I was done with culinary school.
Wow.
Till I was done with culinary school, yeah.
That must have been an incredible experience because it must have been long days.
Super long days, starting at 10 in the morning, ending anywhere from 11 to midnight. But it was a great first impression to New York dining. Also, as you can imagine, with who the owners are, a lot of different celebrities were trying to show the place some love. Mm-hmm. So I got a lot of exposure to that. So pretty much after a year there, being starstruck kind of went away because it was just like another day.
Another day. But
it was great. It built my character a little bit in the kitchen.
So talk to us about that character being built. Where was your next big path? Here you are, you're in college, you don't like it, you go to culinary school, you end up meeting Art Smith, you end up working in his kitchen. Starstruck is no longer a thing because you're meeting different influential people every day. What next?
So after that, I really needed to decide what kind of restaurant do I want to be at. A friend of mine, whose name is Axel, who just recently passed away, he asked me if I wanted to come work with him at a restaurant in Westchester County. It's called BLT in the Ritz-Carlton. Higher end, more technical, a lot more visually pleasing, fine dining. So I went up there and I absolutely loved it. Like I said, it was another breath of fresh air. We're cooking for hundreds, of people every night, different temperatures on the steaks and different types of fish, and we're butchering whole animals. So it was a great experience. And at that time, I actually decided, all right, I never lived with my father before. This opportunity is in Westchester. Let me see what it's like to go live with my father. So that started a whole new chapter of my life after that.
That's impactful. So being in the culinary world linked you back to a whole part of you that was waiting.
Absolutely. It kind of came full circle because you always, as a young man, especially when your father's not around, you always imagine like, what kind of man would I have been if I lived with him? Yeah. So I was like, let me see how that turns out.
And then I know you landed in one of the most famous kitchens in New York City.
Absolutely.
How did that happen? I'm curious for everybody to find out.
So after the job I just mentioned at BLT, I go back and forth probably three more restaurants. I'm always consistently going up, whether it's in position, whether it's a better restaurant, high caliber restaurant. And at this point, I'm working for this company. I'm ready to leave. And I had a crossroad. I got two potential job offerings. One was for Google headquarters. It was going to be a corporate chef position, amazing pay. They supplement benefits on top of what my benefits are, dream job. And then Per Se, 3 Michelin star Per Se, comes back to me that they would like me to work there as well. Oh. And they're paying minimum wage because it's such a privilege to work at a 3 Michelin star restaurant. After you leave there, your career is kind of set in stone. So I'm over here making I'm over here debating. I'm trying to propose to my girlfriend. We're over here making plans. We're living together now. And it was a very difficult decision, but my fiance kind of answered it for me. And she told me that she got another job, that I'm going to go to work at Per Se. So I said, okay.
Wow. So she supported you.
She supported me. And I got to, the way I look at it, instead of being very content and in a cushion job at Google, I winded up doing probably one of the hardest years professionally at one of the world's best restaurants.
I don't know how many people listening know about it, but everybody knows that to be in the Michelin star kitchen, whether it's 1 star or 3 stars, it's tough, right?
It's militant.
Talk to us a little bit about that, because that's curious of how you survive, because somebody listening, and maybe he's a young chef, maybe that's their dream, but talk to us a little bit about what it is like to be inside a 3 Michelin star kitchen.
So there's no games. Everybody understands what it is to go to work. Maybe you get there a minute late. Maybe, you got to go to the bathroom before your time starts. It's very lax. There's no lax. It's you're at work 45 minutes before you're supposed to be, because you have to iron your pants, you have to shine your shoes, You have to sharpen your knives. Everything's pressed. You have to make sure you're shaven, clean shaven. If not, they're gonna kick you out of the kitchen. And there's a stack of resumes on the desk of people that will gladly take your place globally. Globally, I was probably one of maybe 2 or 3 people that were actually residents, like resident New Yorkers that
Wow.
weren't there just because of the job. And we're talking about from, UK, from Japan, from Australia, people from Italy, all there. So you're constantly reminded and you're grateful that you're there. So no matter how hard the day is, you kind of roll with the punches because you understand what this means for your life. But I came from being, running kitchens. When I got there, I was peeling potatoes. So, and everyone has to go through that. It doesn't matter
Wow.
where you came from, doesn't matter who you were before there. They all start you out at the same level, and it builds respect. And everyone looks at each other because we all went through the same thing. It's kind of like, it's like rituals, people, you can relate to someone because you went through the same ritual together.
Well, talk to us a little bit about what it's like to be in that kitchen. I know you said everybody has to start peeling potatoes because of the respect. But what's the day-to-day operation like? What's it like when you wear that apron and when you are behind the line?
So at first it was very surreal, because especially when you hear everyone else's stories, and then I'm looking back, I'm like, I'm just a kid from the Bronx that was working at Italian restaurants. You have to get over that hurdle of not deserving to be there after a while. And it was very militant. So you know exactly what you're doing today. There's different departments for everything. You report to people. There's a hierarchy, but you can spend 3 hours just dealing on one ingredient. There's people that are just washing mushrooms all day because you're picking each individual mushroom and picking out all the sediment from it and double checking and putting redundancies in place. So it's not as glamorous as you might see from outside where you're seeing all this beautiful food. You might be there for years before you're even the person putting the food on the plate. So it's very much earning your respect, learning the process of everything before you get to that final point, because in their mind, the cooking part is easy. It's all the stuff that comes before that and your philosophy towards food and your attitude towards what we're doing that really matters. So no stars are born overnight there.
Wow, that's not how I think the average Joe sees it. So thanks for clearing that up.
Yes.
And when you decided to depart from the kitchen, what was it? Were you craving something more? I know you said you were always looking for that next.
When I left per se, it was more financial. Because I'm over here trying to start a family, looking to propose to my fiance, and I needed something that was going to pay the bills. It was a great experience. I stood there for a year. That was like my mark. I want to try to at least stay there for a year. And I give that advice to any chef. If that's the route you want to go, you want an experience at a 3-Michelin-star restaurant, try your best to do it as young as possible when you don't have too many responsibilities, because that will take over your life. That will be your life for the amount of years you set to do it. It's very hard to balance.
And then to any young chef listening, how did they get in that kitchen? I know you said there was applicants from all over the world dying to take the place.
So you have to put I winded up finding just an ad on LinkedIn. It was for a sous chef position, but it doesn't matter what position the advertisement's for, you're going to start at the bottom there. So if you see any sort of position there, you just go on it. You go on it and you keep being persistent like anything. If you find a chef you're following on Instagram, direct message them. Tell them you're willing to take a flight out to New York or whatever you might do, because those opportunities happen all the time. People will take a chance on you if they think you're passionate.
Well, the next question is, how do I land an interview? I'm dying to ask you, what's an interview of a chef look like?
So an interview,
do I show up and cook for you?
Pretty much. An interview of a chef, it usually goes, you might have a verbal interview over the phone or in person. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you in the kitchen. So it's a working interview. And I know a lot of professions, like, can you imagine a working interview? Someone putting you to work while they're judging your work. That doesn't really happen too many times. People can kind of talk the talk and have the gift of gab and get the job. And you won't get the job if you don't deserve the job, especially in a high profile kitchen. It's very much practical. And that's one thing I love about it, because it's an equalizer. It doesn't matter if you're 6'5", 200 pounds, or if you're 5'2", 110 pounds soaking wet. If you can cook, you're gonna get the job. That's why you see it's so kind of egalitarian in the cooking world. You'll find chefs that run the best kitchens that are young women that are petite, and they're telling these grown men, what to do, and they're doing it. And it's because they respect them. They understand that they know what they're talking about. So I love the field like that because it's kind of, there's no smoke and mirrors. You really can't hide behind anything. You can either do it or you can't.
Wow, that's a powerful statement that you made there. And it goes so along with the Rootless mission and the Rootless purpose. And it's like, if you're in the kitchen, it's anybody game, right? It doesn't
Absolutely.
matter what you look like or who you are,
They're,
where you come
they're usually
from.
a band of misfits, not a lot of people just say, I want to be working, 15, 16 hours a day in a hot kitchen. You kind of have to be a little bit of a masochist to do it.
So that was my next question, Will. Now I want you to tell us the full picture because we might have a dream version of what we think being a chef is like. But what is it like? What is the day? What's a hard day in the kitchen? When do you wake up? How do you get to work? When do you leave?
So when I was at the 3 Michelin star restaurant, showtime was 6, so I was
AM?
6 a.m.
6 a.m.
And I told you there's a pre-ritual before you even walk in the door. So I'm leaving my house around 4 a.m. Getting to work around 5:10. I'm taking the train from the Bronx down to the city. And when I get to work, I'm shaving. There's only one iron in the locker room, so I want to make sure I can iron before everybody else can. I'm ironing my pants, ironing my apron, my chef coat, getting ready, getting your tools in order, testing your knives, seeing if they need to be sharpened. And then you walk in at 6 a.m. And from 6 a.m. to probably about noon, it's just head down working. If you're not working, you're being asked what the F you're doing because you're not working. So you do that. Then you get a quick 30-minute meal, then you're right back to it. And sometimes you wouldn't get out till 10 p.m. So we're talking about, 12, 14, 15 hours. And it's not just in Michelin star restaurants.
Right.
If you're running any kitchen, the margins in restaurants aren't that high. So usually if you're the head chef, you're wearing a lot of hats. And you're going to be there all day. You're going to be there all day, every day. It's glamorous, the end results, and when you get those, those great moments, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But at the end of the day, it takes a lot of grit, and you have to really want it. You have to be passionate about it because that's what's going to carry you over.
Right. I mean, I will say that now I feel so guilty because I'm that person that's photographing the food and I'm not putting much thought and I'm just like eating it. Now you're making me understand how much went into that and how much somebody's investing in to make sure that you are getting that beautiful end result, that food that you love so much and you enjoy both visually and tastefully. So
Absolutely.
It takes so much effort and from every member of the team. And that effort sometimes starts as early as 4 a.m. And, we don't realize that as consumers when we're there at 3 p.m. sitting on the patio having a great laugh,
Of course. And listen, we do it, a lot of chefs, now the chef life has been a little more glamorized. The chef is out in front. But most don't, they don't do it for the recognition. They understand whether their food is good or not, and they put it out there, and they just want people to enjoy themselves. A lot of chefs, even like me, I don't really cook for myself that often, unless I'm experimenting on something. My joy comes from cooking for somebody else. So they go hand in hand, the cooking and, making other people happy. We're pretty much nurturing, other people, and we're giving a little bit of
That's
ourselves to someone else.
That's powerful. And now I'm going to jump into if somebody's listening that wants to become a chef. They've heard your story. They want a similar story for themselves. You spoke about those knives and those tools. Does every chef have to carry their own, or are those provided in some cases?
For the most part, if you're there's some restaurants, that might be chains or that might be smaller that they provide knives for their cooks. But mostly if you're in a newer restaurant, a more, fine dining type of restaurant, each chef is responsible for their own knives because the last thing you want is someone else touching your knife. That dictates how your day is going to go, how sharp your knife is. So definitely have your own equipment.
So that's the investment piece. The investment piece is like you can skip the culinary, or you can go to culinary school.
You can definitely choose either path. I would recommend if you can, out of high school, go to culinary school. There's some amazing culinary schools like the French Culinary Institute, which is now the International Culinary Center. You have the large one up in Hyde Park, which is pretty much a whole campus that you can do get your bachelor's in as well. That's the Culinary Institute of America, CIA, the popular one. But if you're young, if like out of high school, I want to be a chef.
Don't waste time.
Don't waste time. Go to the best restaurant you can, whether you have no experience or not, and say, I will wash dishes. It's like anything. I used to go from door to door in restaurants and say, I will work for free. I will work for free for a few days, whatever it is, before labor laws started getting so strict here in New York. Now you have to pay someone just for like an interview. But just go in, because you got to understand, from my point of view, especially now, older and being running kitchens, if someone came into my kitchen and said, I will start washing dishes for you today, I would put you on. Like, that hunger, that drive
Shows a lot.
shows a lot, and people are always itching to give some of themselves away, their knowledge away. People gravitate towards having a mentee, or
Yes.
we want that, and that's your best move. Just go out and do it. You can, obviously on your off time, send as many resumes as you can, but if you don't have that much experience, just show up. Just show up.
So you're saying if you're young and you're listening to this, maybe go, maybe don't go. That's up to you. Invest in those tools.
Absolutely.
And then go out there and start knocking on kitchen. How should they also sharpen their skills? What did you do in those early days? I'm assuming you did a lot of practice at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I practiced at home. Culinary school was a great help. But if you don't have culinary school, you can go on YouTube. Look at all these different techniques. At least learn the vocabulary behind the kitchen. Learn what someone means when they say to brunoise an onion, or what mirepoix is, or what the perfect temperature of a steak is. Learn all this vocabulary, the vernacular behind being in the kitchen, and then when you get there, people will be amazed. They'll be amazed that you know what this technique is. That at least knocks half of the work down, where you can understand what things are. So now when you see it, you know what someone's doing. You're not starting from scratch.
If you're young, you're listening, of course, I'm just bringing it back. It's
Sure.
like the knowledge, get your tools, practice, start going around asking anybody and everybody if they'll take you, even for a dishwasher, even though
Absolutely.
it has nothing to do with cooking. And then maybe show some of your talents, and hopefully they see you.
You're pretty
They
much putting
acknowledge
yourself in a position for when the opportunity comes, you're ready to
You're
embrace
there.
it. So pick out your top 10 favorite restaurants. You've already been studying what different food terms mean. You're already doing your own research. If you get in the door as a dishwasher or a prep cook or anything like that, now you're ready for the opportunity to do something more, and you're ready to take it. You position yourself in a very good position where now you can seize the opportunity.
And my next question is gonna come to, what if that somebody has done that, but they're too afraid to take those leaps? Because you spoke a lot about the fact that you knew when it was time to go to the next. You were always trying to increase your portfolio, whether it was in position in the kitchen or in a better restaurant, right? In a restaurant of higher magnitude. So how does a young chef make those jumps, right? How do they know in themselves that I can do this now? It's ready. It's time to leave this little mom and shop and go to the next one.
I think when there's nothing else to be learned is a good opportunity to go, because it's a progressing field. What's cool today in food wasn't cool, isn't going to be cool 2 years from now. So all depending what your niche is, if what your dream is to open up a sandwich shop and you're working at a sandwich shop right now, listen, work there until you know how to run the sandwich shop in and out. But if you want to be more of a fine dining chef and you want to have more creativity and you want to become an executive chef, you have to at first do your due diligence before you accept the job. If it doesn't seem like something that's going to, if there's not enough learning there to begin with, maybe you shouldn't take that job. Mm-hmm. But I try to at least give every job, the standard, like a year, 2 years. But it really all depends. All that due diligence comes before you take the job. And then you know when you need to leave, when you've learned everything you can, and there's nothing else to learn.
You hit the nail on the head with that one. I mean, I think you couldn't have said it better. And now fast forwarding a little bit to your next calling, because you kind of left the kitchen altogether in the restaurant scene. How did you make that jump? Tell us a little bit about that.
I'm reaching the end of my time at Per Se. Like I said, pay wasn't that good. Experience completely amazing, and I've always thought of what the life of a private chef was. At this point, I'm already 9 years working in kitchens entirely, and I remember when I got out of culinary school, I looked up, highest paid chefs, and
I like how
it all came up private chefs, right? So when I get out of culinary school, I hit up a private chef agency, say, hey, I want to be a private chef. I see they make, 6 figures, they go around the world, and they say, okay, what's your experience? I'm like, nothing. So they're like, no, you need to work a little bit. So fast forward 9 years, I'm finishing working at a 3 Michelin star restaurant.
You're like, this is it now.
I actually kept in contact with a recruiter that I knew, and this is another thing about how important relationships are. I didn't get the job initially when I applied, but I kept in contact with him for almost a decade, inviting him to restaurants I was working at, things of that
Just
nature.
so he could see you and
Yeah,
really
genuinely appreciate.
appreciate you, yeah.
And I explained to him, hey, I know you haven't heard from me in a while. I was at a 3 Michelin restaurant per se. I'm ready to leave. He says, okay, that might work. I'll put that on your resume and send it to me. Within a week, I got an interview to be private chef for a very well-known, Oscar award-winning actor here in New York.
Wow.
And that's when my life kind of just took off. They loved me, and I ended up making the transition, and now I was a private chef.
And what's it like being a private chef?
It's not for all chefs. It's not for all chefs. Some of the best, you get the chef from the best restaurant in the world, he might not work in the kitchen with, children running around and people changing their minds last minute. So that's, yeah. So you have to be humble, you have to be very flexible, and you have to understand, if you're a cook out there, if you're working in a restaurant, it's like waiting on the owners of a restaurant every day. So it's like, this is the VIP every day. So I'm with my principals, the VIPs, and I have to base my whole menu on what their preferences are, what dietary restrictions they have, allergies they might have, what their schedule is throughout the day. If it's a family, they might not all eat at the same time. I might have staff that I need to feed as well. So it's a very different world.
Wow. And I'm guessing it's a long day. Do you sometimes stay with the family?
So yeah, for that specific client, I would go almost the same as per se. I was going in at 6 a.m, making sure kids eat before they go to school, make sure the parents eat breakfast. Then I would grab groceries, prepare lunch, send lunch out to the children at school, and then stay for dinner as well. Wow. So it was another 16, 18-hour day.
But some of the highs were that you were probably with this family traveling.
Oh, absolutely. I got to take private jets, got to stay in huge mansions. Some of them have even given me the keys to stay there with my fiance over the weekend alone. So a lot of perks, but also a lot of hard work and time. And you're willing to do it because you're compensated very, very well for it. So it's a lot of chefs see it as kind of selling out and going into the world, but some of the best chefs in the world, you'll probably never taste their food because they're cooking for someone specifically.
Wow, and you obviously have to be a very trustworthy person because these people are trusting you with not only their home but their entire privacy. So you have to be very discreet and
very, very discreet. Non-disclosures are mandatory. You have to realize you're a worker inside someone's house, and those lines can be blurred sometimes.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, so you have to really be conscious of the fact that you're there for a purpose. You're there to serve a purpose and provide a service for this family, and nothing more. Be cordial, be nice to each other, but you can't step over that boundary because depending on who the family you're working for is, that might be a game changer. That might be a no-go.
So I'm going to talk about the networking for a minute because you spoke about the network and how you said I kept in touch with a recruiter. How important is the networking aspect in the culinary world, and how badly can that go if not nurtured? Is it a small world, I guess, in the world of chefs?
It definitely is a small world, and especially if you're going to like the Michelin world or fine dining in general, there's only so many of them, so they exchange information, and it's like any industry. If you leave somewhere, there might, and you're not providing a reference, they might do their own due diligence and find out. So keeping good terms, not burning any bridges, being very cordial, and just happy for other people's success is what it boils down to. A lot of chefs are introverts. A lot of chefs get competitive, but we're in a new time now where everybody's collaborating. People can do more together than they can apart. Mm-hmm. So just like in any field, especially in food in New York, you have to maintain your relationships because you never know what opportunity might come.
And how that person might come back.
Absolutely.
If you burn that bridge, there might be somebody's investor or partner.
Precisely. And it's happened to the best of us. You never know where someone's going to be 5 years from now.
Wow, and it's great that you. And the reason I brought that up because as you're a young chef and maybe you want to keep leaving these restaurants, just make sure you leave in great terms.
Absolutely.
Don't just not show up one day to work just because you got a better position in another kitchen because you never know. It's a small world,
You never know.
and you know that might hurt you later on in your career advancement. So,
Always put in those 2 weeks.
Will, today you are a celebrity chef. You are cooking for as a private chef for these well-known figures. What's next for you? Like I know you said you're always wanting to grow. Is this where you see yourself for the foreseeable future?
For now, you never know what's going to happen. But after I worked for that particular family, the actor, started working for another family, and this is late 2019 going into 2020, and then COVID happened, and I lost my job. I was riding high. I went from minimum wage to six figures. Beautiful life now. Planning for a wedding, I proposed to my girlfriend, I got those things checked off that I was working for, and lost my job. My income at that point got slashed 75% for the whole year of 2020. At that point, I was really deciding, what do I want to do? What is there to do? I realized restaurants are closed. If I'm careful, maybe people will still allow me in their home and cook. So I started my own private chef business. And by necessity, it kind of forced me to start thinking of myself. Maybe I shouldn't just be for one family. Maybe I should start taking on clients and be a little more reliable on myself, because my whole income stream was dependent on one variable that now is gone. So I was doing that the whole summer going into fall last year. I was doing private events at people's homes, small gatherings. I was marketing it as CDC COVID friendly small gatherings, maybe a couple or two, and doing dinner in their home. And then towards the end of last year, I wound up getting my first big client, which wound up being pro NBA player that plays for one of the New York basketball teams. And that, again, changed the trajectory again for me. So
this time it was on your own?
This time I got found by another person that works for him on LinkedIn, and just hit it off, had an interview, and then it led to a working interview. And it's like anything else. Whenever someone brings you on to a job, just always just do what they want you to do. It was another chef, his main chef, who was looking to leave, and he brought me in, and it's like another teachable moment for other people. If you're ever in that position where, say, someone you're replacing or someone who you're going to be working with, who has more experience than you, is training you, you pretty much just want to be them when they're not here, and then you can develop your own working style, and especially in the private chef field, it worked out for me. So I had my big client, and now it looks like I'm getting another big client from a New York football team.
That's
and
amazing.
I always wanted to open up my own restaurant, but this is what's working. This is what, and this is what I love. So.
You don't need to worry about all that overhead.
No, maybe. You never know.
Maybe, but that's insane. So that's beautiful that you brought it up. So here you are cooking for one family. The world for everybody hits a reset button.
Yeah.
But you took that as an opportunity. Okay, I need to just figure out that next time this happens, I have multiple streams. So let me quickly go and brand myself as a private chef and see who out there wants to hire me. And because you have such an incredible network, you're able to link up again and have somebody welcome you to not necessarily do what you want to do, but do what was asked. Which
Absolutely.
is a great thing that you highlight. What was the first meal that you were thrown into?
Oh, my first meal for being a private chef at
Yes.
this new job? I think I made something like mac and cheese and fried chicken, and
That's
something just beautiful and that's another thing for people who want to be in private chefs. Every client is different. Some clients have strict diets. Some clients just want what they grew up eating. And if they wanted to go to a Michelin star restaurant, if they wanted to go out to eat, they'd go. They stood home tonight to eat for a reason. So some people don't want overcomplicated foods, even though there's certain times where I'm making multiple course Michelin star food. There's other nights where I'm just making mac and cheese and cornbread and fried chicken. So you have to constantly be venturing out, trying new foods. I was never big into Indian food. Now I am, because I need to throw that into my rotation. It's forcing you to go out there and expand your knowledge.
And that leads me to my next question, which is a fun question. So you're saying that chefs eat out a lot too?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Everyone thinks I eat great at home because I'm cooking, or that my fiance, if If my fiance is not cooking, I'm probably ordering out. Because the way I explain it to people is like, imagine if you're an accountant and you come home and someone at home's asking you to do the taxes. It's like,
Yeah, it's like,
no, I'd rather somebody else do that for, you know?
But it's also feeds your creativity because, like you
Absolutely.
said, it pushes new boundaries and you see what other chefs are doing.
I appreciate so much when other people cook for me. So, people sometimes are stressed when they have to cook and I'm there, they're like, oh, you're probably going to hate my food. The fact that someone else is cooking for me is such, I give them such respect off of that because I know what it is to, to put your work into nurturing someone else. So I love it. I love it.
Wow.
I'm not judgy. I'm not anything like that. I just appreciate it.
So anybody listening that's your mom's cooking tonight or your fiance or your friend or your girlfriend, be thankful
Appreciate
the fact that they
it.
took the time to actually make something for you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Appreciate that. Well, this is such a great interview because I've learned so much, and I'm sure anybody listening has learned so much about not only what it takes to become a chef, but what it takes to continue being a chef. And to anybody listening, now talk to us a little bit about the mindset. Is there any mindset that you keep each day as you make these career advancements and these readjustments in your career? Any tip that you'd give a young chef?
In this day and age, and when I was young being a chef, the last thing I worried about was being big on social media or anything. I just put my head down and I worked. If I didn't know someone personally, they probably didn't know where I worked or I was just focused on putting in the groundwork. And it's a gift and a curse because I look back and now that I have my own private chef company, I wish I spent more time investing in myself as my brand. So you have to find that balance. You need to work hard, put your head down, go incognito for 5 years, and be a subject matter expert in your field, and then you'll come out with so much knowledge and so much things to give away, so much information that you can give to other people, that now you can start working on branding yourself. So don't do one or the other too early. You need to put in that work because when you've put in 10 years in an industry, you now have an abundance of knowledge to give away. You can make content about whatever you want.
Yeah, and I was going to say, how important is social media to a young chef today in New York City, let's say?
It's everything. It's everything. I feel like Instagram is the new website, and I tell someone, no matter what age they are, they can be 50, 60 years old. I tell somebody I'm a private chef, they're going to Instagram to look at my food. Wow. So Instagram, I feel like, is absolutely necessity, and you have TikTok and all these things. So definitely maintain your professional reference, your professional friends on LinkedIn. Develop as many connections and link up with as many people as you can, but don't forget to brand yourself and to let the world know what you're doing.
And what you're doing differently.
Exactly.
Any branding advice that you'd give to a young chef? Like, what should they be mindful of, or maybe not do too much of? Any tip there for the branding?
I would say just try to incorporate it into what your day is like. Try not to stress it too much. Try to integrate this lifestyle into your life. Try to integrate the content and all that stuff into your lifestyle, so you're like, oh, today I have to make a video of this. If you're already doing it, you just document yourself doing it. Kind of embody your teaching.
That's so right, because sometimes a lot of us, when it comes to content building, whether it's for a chef or a business owner, you put so much thought into like, what am I going to make a video of? Well, why don't you just have the video roll while you're doing so many things, and
exactly.
That way the content is.
Don't get me wrong, I'm taking food photos, I'm setting up lights and all these things because it's very visual.
Course. Well, you've given us such incredible advice. I have to ask though, I'm sure you have a couple of bad days in the kitchen. Maybe somebody didn't like something you made.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you deal with those moments?
I think that comes from like personal strength, being cool under pressure, working in a high intense environment like the kitchen. Good days and bad days are gonna come. There's some days where everything's going perfect. There's some days where, I've put out a whole wedding, and then before you know it, you have 50 steaks coming back because whether you made a mistake or a waiter made a mistake, everyone got the wrong order. So you kind of just have to take a breath, and it really comes from personal strength and just understanding.
Wow.
Food is just food. This is the situation I've been dealt right now. And I got to move on, and it comes from the way I grew up, different life experiences, but it's like everything. It's like a little bit of suffering makes you learn. So you just revert back to those moments, and it's like, this isn't the end of the world. Let me just regroup and do what I got to do.
Yeah, that's 50 steaks coming back.
Oh yeah,
That's a real story?
it's a real story. Real story.
Yeah,
With
I
my
can
brother,
imagine.
my brother Brian, he'll know.
I can imagine what you must have been going through. Because you have the pressure, you have the guests, and now you're seeing these 50 steaks come
Yeah.
back into your kitchen.
And anyone who's worked in a restaurant, they know like the battle between the front and the back of the house sometimes. So one is blaming the other's blaming the other.
No,
But
I
either
remember.
way.
I remember when I worked in a kitchen. It was just bad enough telling the chef that a chicken parm wasn't done correctly. I couldn't imagine telling the chef that we need 50
Oh, no.
new steaks.
Oh no, oh no, not good.
Any mistakes you've made that you think back that you could wish you could warn others of, or you wish somebody warned you of? Yeah.
I probably would have done a lot of these things earlier. I would have went to culinary school right after high school, applied to maybe one of a really good Michelin star restaurant when I was young, so the money really wouldn't have affected me much. So just don't be afraid to take those risks young. It's hard to figure out what you really want to do at a young age sometimes, but just give it a chance. Take a tour of a culinary school. Take a tour of these places that you want to be at, and something will click.
I have a question about in terms of, would you do it again? If you were given the chance to become a chef or something else, would you do it again?
I would. I can't see myself doing anything else. Being a chef and then progressing into having my own business, it's exposing me to now new things like marketing and investing, things like that. So I think maybe in a past life I might have been more of a business guy, but
But
you can integrate being a business person with anything now. So it's amazing.
I ask this question just because it's worth putting out there. Who shouldn't become a chef, even though they love it? If you do this, don't become a chef.
If you're not a team player, if you're self-centered, if you can't take criticism well, if you think you know it all, you shouldn't be a chef because you get humbled every day. Someone's doing something new, someone's doing something better than you, and you
Every
have
day.
to adapt. You have to adapt. You have to be willing to learn new things and to understand what you've been doing maybe isn't the right thing to do.
And any entrepreneurial advice? Wait, I know everybody when I ask this question thinks I'm going to say I agree with. Any entrepreneurial advice you disagree with that you've heard somebody say that you're like, well, if I could say it to somebody, I would say, don't do that or completely different. Because I know we all hear things out there in the World Wide Web or Instagram. We see all these posts, but sometimes we don't necessarily agree with all those things.
The advice I'd give to people is just do what feels right to you. Find the thing that you're trying to do. Like I said, become an expert in it. And eventually you'll realize that people are looking for your service. And keep it as simple as possible. You need to overcomplicate. If you don't have the money to incorporate yourself and become an LLC and get a
Yeah.
business account, you don't need to. Develop your client base, your rapport, create super fans out there that are going to tell other people about your product. And then the things will start coming into place. And when the money's flowing in so much that you don't have the time, then you incorporate, then you develop systems, preferably have some systems ready to go in. But if you're not making anything off of your product or service right now, you don't need to worry about calling LegalZoom for an LLC. Develop your core and your foundation.
I'll close it with this. You said something very beautiful earlier that is completely in line with the Rootless purpose. You said you were trying to go to college for your mom, right? To please your mom, because you thought that's what she wanted you to do, because everything she had done for you, raising you with all that strength. What would you say to somebody listening that maybe is caught in a similar dilemma? I'm sure a lot of Rootless listeners maybe are caught in this dilemma. What would you say to them? Because I'm sure your mom's happy today. So what would you say to that young person listening?
It's a very difficult position to be in, but step one is finding what you'd rather do. It's very hard to convince mom and dad that you don't want to go to school if there's nothing that you're saying you actually want to do. So I would say, going to college is better than waiting around for something to do. It'll put you in positions where you can start looking around and seeing what it is you want to do. But if you know what you want to do and you already developed some sort of buzz or developed some sort of, accolades in something, then I would say double down, full throttle. Maybe school isn't the right thing for you to do. But find out what that thing is first, because the thing you want to do, you might look back and say a college education might have helped me in the same thing I'm trying to do. So not mandatory, but you need to figure out what it is you're trying to do first, and then you'll know more.
And your parents will be happy regardless.
They'll be happy regardless. As long as you move out of home and you're not hitting them up for money every week, they'll be happy.
Well, there you have it, Chef Will. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. You've told us so much insight into your journey, your life, and how you got to where you got to today. I can't wait to continue following your story to see how. I know you were just recently featured on Chopped, cooking alongside incredible chefs like Martha Stewart, and that's incredible. I'm sure you're going to have many more of those opportunities coming your way now that you've decided to embark on your own company as a private chef. Any final remarks on your behalf, or how may people connect with you?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to give my story. This usually isn't something I do all the time because I'm usually, like I said, most chefs are introverts. We like to stay hiding in the kitchen. But if anybody wants to see more of my stuff, my food, I'm at chefwilllaw@gmail.com, Chef Will Law at Instagram, and Chef Will Law on TikTok. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Will.